Chapter 3. Lucid. I brushed one slippered foot on a circular dais comprised of 1,000 glittering diamonds. The black slab of an operations table lay before me, the stone indented to accommodate the average human figure. A wall of the same basalt rock ringed the laboratory, and tiered ebony platforms followed the room's curve. In each step of dark wood, a shelf glowed with the luminance of tools and baubles. The wall possessed no ornamentation, and neither doors nor windows marred its surface. Above the shelves, my favourite jewels drifted through the air, lighting the round room with their multicoloured hues. Sapphires in flight shone like the blue of hot flames, while clusters of rubies and amethysts orbited like flocks of songbirds. I attracted a towel embroidered with gold to my hand, and it flew from a shelf through the air to my outstretched fingers. An enchantress's primary power was to draw objects towards her, and attracting came so naturally to me by now that I did not consider it a spell so much as a polite invitation for an item to jump into my palm. All the shelved baubles stored memories of complex magic scripts, and the golden cloth I held was no exception. At my touch, the cloth shone, and hundreds of targeted attractions pulled the sweat in my gowns into droplets, which were burdened until they rolled down my stockings and away. I swiveled in the air, streams of bright fabric trailing my arms, until I faced a full-length mirror. The levitating looking-glass did not reflect my image, but my memories. It would reveal visions of my past, whether or not I had been sufficiently clear-headed to acknowledge them at the time. Shri the once flawless appeared in the mirror, and understanding flashed into me. A tumour in her liver had swelled within her abdomen, mimicking the shape of pregnancy. Its corruption had spread to her brain, and there increased the production of her feminine oils, which stimulated her hair follicles and mammary glands. Dementia then explained the rest of her ravings. Having restored reality, I beckoned to the mirror. Images of the other 6 women blinked by within its crystal-covered silver, their imminent motherhood revealed not only in their bellies, but also in the fullness and vibrancy of their black hair. 2 even flaunted pregnancy masks. The darker pigmentation speckling their cheeks and brows would have arisen in the 2nd trimester. I could not believe it. The probability of seeing 6 pregnant women one after another was 1,000 times less likely than 1 in 4,800. I calculated the vast numbers by visualizing beads in pyramid piles and then counting the colorful mountains all in a glance. Desperate to break the trend, I batted a few floating rubies away from my head and commanded my mirror to show a memory from earlier in the day. I had parted a window curtain as the carriage had rolled through a gatehouse in the city's flood wall. 17 feet tall and 7 3/4 thick, the wall would protect Morromound from summer torrents as well as from greedy invaders. I knew its specifications because I had designed them and planned its construction in an idle hour at the academy, and my gold had paid for its stone. We had entered the fringe of the city, Stilt Town, where shanties and shacks stood on wooden platforms 5 feet above the ground. The elevation would prove unnecessary now, due to the flood wall, and thus newer buildings squatted closer to the mud. Wooden structures rotted in this climate, an odour of mould tingled the back of my throat when I recalled the scene. Men had stared at our passing, as had one woman, who had paused in stringing fish out to dry. I jerked my eyes away from the reflection of her round belly. "Your point is made, goddess," I said. "No need to direct more pregnancies into my path." The Fate Weaver must be punishing me for returning to Morromound before ridding myself of the sleeping disease. My somnolence was part of the goddess's divine plan. It had to be. Her gift, her curse, gave me tremendous advantage in the study of enchantment because the magic could only be accessed during sleep. Only when I had fulfilled my role in the academy would the Fate Weaver allow me to find a cure and return to a life of wakefulness in my city home. I had even hosted the funerals of my parents outside the flood wall, amid ripened rice fields in order not to offend the goddess. I never should have heeded Shri's letter. Passing through the gates had been a sacrilege. Each pregnancy I saw was a penance, a reminder of my own insufficiency. I had always imagined myself with a family, yet everything came in its proper time. Before children should come marriage, and before marriage should come a bride's capacity to stay awake at her wedding. Ache spread from my chest to my abdomen, and my throat contracted by 35%, as a desire to cry tingled behind my eyes. I disallowed myself tears in my dream. Forcing my mind away from thoughts of childlessness, I willed my mirror to depict what I had seen in the bazaar of fallen stars. Shri's yellow skin warned me that I would need to obtain help for her immediately. If the feaster did not kill her tonight, then her wormwood-destroyed liver would drown her in her own toxins tomorrow. The people in the crowd now appeared before me in perfect clarity. The faces of the men were strained, the skin below their eyes swollen from poor sleep. I detected more alcohol in their collected breaths than I would expect. They eyed each other with distrust, one scowl even suggesting murderous wishes. When they looked upon my gowns and me, they displayed a mix of hope, avarice, and uncertainty. Not particularly pleased, I shifted my concentration to the women. The first I observed sold green and orange melons, and her belly was comparable in shape to the sizable fruits. Another female lifted sheets of blue and pink cloth, draping them for display over her prominent midsection. Feeling increasingly breathless, I focused my mirror on the faces of the women. Even when they smiled to entice customers, their facial musculature displayed undertones of apprehension common to potential mothers. Less usual were the daze and paranoia detected in their wide, skittering eyes. One woman's visage opened in fear when a man cornered her between two merchant stalls to demand who had fathered her child. I should have liked to remind him to be civil, yet the carriage would have moved well past by now. In the cold serenity of my laboratory, I could control my panic. The explanation for all the pregnant women needed not to be divine in origin. Moriman's priests, perhaps, had ordained that only women bearing children should venture outside today, for some inscrutable reason. This would also account for why so few women traverse the streets, a mere one for every 8 men. The rest would be residing in their homes. My focus swept over the buildings, up ladders leading to doors that stood an average of 10 feet above street level. Per custom, people had painted messages beside the ladders, conversations between residents, passers-by and guests. "At their table, I ate the finest melon seed curry in my life," read one line. Below it was scrawled, "You are always welcome, Saral Manjit. I hope to enjoy it again tonight. May your bricks never crack and your gems ever shine." On another home's wall I read, "The Fate Weaver has blessed Uma with beauty. May she bear many sons." Lower down appeared, "Basu Trilspar and Uma are wed on this day. Let them ever thrive." Those salutations I expected. Closer to street level, the more recent messages caught my attention. "Your daughter swallowed a nest of crocodile eggs, or she should get married." "The home of Path, a bad thread who has wronged my sister." "She is no flawless." "Prita couldn't keep her skirt on." "They are all rotten threads." "Damodar will die for what he did to Kanti." "Never flawless." "Fate Weaver spins ugly web, not even flawless spared." The view of my mirror zoomed from one wall to another, from painted insults to anger chiseled into brick. I had never seen such hatred here, and all were written within the last 2 months. The accusations drove me to re-inspect the pregnant women I had seen. I bobbed toward one mirror, and swaths of velvet and silk flowed around me, weightless and drifting. Only half the women wore twined marriage necklaces, the rest were unmarried. I checked them all again and again, multiple times a second, their reflections spinning past. This could not be right. I must be missing something, some citywide jest of which I was not aware. or Diamond Way had an uncharacteristic amount of ill will between competing merchants who had written their arguments on walls. And as for the unmarried pregnant women, I must have observed a sample unrepresentative of the city. A peculiarity even more difficult to explain was that all the women had appeared to be in the same trimester, the final one. I had always prided myself on my ability not to speculate prematurely, yet this last detail splintered my composure into shards of boggling colour.
"All the women of Morrimond are with child."
The memory of Shrie's words echoed in my dream laboratory. Jewels trembled in the air.
"And all for just as long."
She had to have lied. Rather, the fate weaver must be guiding me toward a future of insanity. The mirror now showed myself, mouthing my promise not to return to Morrimond, while the images of the recently seen women squeezed around me, entwining me in tangled arms and between rotund bellies. It was too much. I had to stop thinking. I had to flee my laboratory. To exit my dream, I burdened myself, my magic increasing my weight until I smashed through the diamond dais below me, sparkling jewels scattered and faded into blackness. I awoke in a blissful stupor, in the shadow of a white ziggurat. As we traversed to the west side of the step pyramid, its gypsum plaster shone red in the late afternoon sun. The carriage rolled past lotus gardens, and beneath arches formed of the draping roots of banyan trees, we stopped alongside the elliptical court of God's Eye. Deepman, the spell sword, opened the carriage door and announced me, "Elder Enchantress Hiresha, recipient of 27 honorary gowns and the Mindvault Academy's Provost of Applied Enchantment." Of course, I did not wear all 27 gowns. That would be ridiculous. I only wore 6. The rest were interwoven over my back and trailed behind in a procession of resplendent colour. The occupants of the court gawked at me, and I returned their stares, open-mouthed. Women stood in a line around the circumference of the court, yet no, I could not call them women. All younger than 14, these girls had not yet accustomed themselves to their maturing bodies, and their gangly limbs teetered as they tried to support the weight of their pregnancies. 2 girls backed away from the rippling spread of my gowns as I staggered forward. I searched their faces, and those of male acolytes in the centre of the court, for signs of suppressed humour. This had to be a jest. The priests had known I would return today, and had prepared an elaborate and reprehensible hoax at my expense. Their faces seemed surprised and otherwise indecipherable. I would know no more until I slept. I asked, "What is the meaning of this conspiracy?" A cluster of acolytes bowed their heads and parted around Abois, the priest of the Ever-Always. I recognized him by his robes. He wore the representation of the sun-adorning cloth the shade of green peridot, and a long sleeve flowed behind his arm as he gestured to the girls. "Praise the ever-thriving, always dying. These pregnant women are all virgins."